Garrett Ziegler joins us now. He's the founder of Marco Polo, and he's a former deputy to the Trump White House advisor, Peter Navarro, as well. Garrett, great to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Vince, for having me on. It's a pleasure.
It's another wild saga for Hunter Biden. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You were being screamed at by Biden family members this past week, correct?
Just one of them, yes. His crazed second wife, Melissa Cohen, came up to me after I got a drink in the water fountain right outside the courtroom and said that I had no right to be there and I was a Nazi POS. Both things are wrong. Every citizen has a right to attend criminal proceedings in this country. I don't know where she thinks she's currently at. And second of all, I'm not a Nazi, obviously. All we've done is expose what's on that laptop that you alluded to that was submitted by the prosecution and accepted as evidence by Judge Noriega. There is no sign of tampering, and even Erica Jensen from the FBI attested to that. And again, Melissa didn't call us liars, and neither is Hunter. They just hate that we haven't let up on this story because it's so insane and it goes right to the top. And like Tristan said, if this were a story about Hunter, it's just interesting but not critical. The fact that it is all about Joe is what makes it so crucial.
Yes, absolutely crucial. Okay, so Garrett, if you could just take us through this past week. What was it like attending the trial? What did you see? What do you think people need to know about it?
Well, I would grade it a C-level trial in that this is not the most serious conduct Hunter has committed. The trial was from Monday to Tuesday. I was there all last week, every day. Monday was jury selection the entire day, and the opening arguments didn't get underway until Tuesday. What is unique is that the president's daughter-in-law testified against his son. The president's other daughter-in-law testified against his son, and his ex-girlfriend, who is on Twitter as WeedSlut420. That is her literal username. I'm not making that up. And so what is unique about this trial is that they had all these family members against Hunter. And, you know, another thing that's unique is that the prosecution played Hunter's own words back to him because he did his memoir in an audiobook. I think the next thing that's unique is that this hasn't been reported a lot because besides me, there were, and Miranda Devine and Josh Boswell, there are very few people in the actual courtroom, because there was an overflow room, Vince, that like 200 reporters were in where you could get the audio, but you couldn't get the actual video feed in real time. But the American First Family was constantly shaking their head and making other nonverbal and sometimes verbal reactions to what the prosecutors were saying, which in my opinion is inappropriate. And the jurors saw that. And this courtroom is full of Secret Service officers, U.S. Marshals, et cetera. So I am proud of the jury that they didn't get spooked by all of that, because it really is a night and day difference. You have all these people in designer clothes with their Secret Service shaking their heads at in fact, when that laptop was introduced as evidence, the actual device, Hunter Biden's wife, the one who accosted me for no reason whatsoever, she was shaking her head and talking to the First Lady. And in fact, when she came up and accosted me, the First Lady was right behind her. So Jill approves of that. Jill thinks it's okay for an American citizen to be told that they have no right to be there just because the American First Family doesn't like him. You know, that's ridiculous behavior, and they shouldn't be, as members of the gallery, reacting in a negative fashion to what the prosecution says. These people, you'd think, because they're an American First Family, they'd have thicker skin, right? I mean, everybody who even played high school sports went through heckling. That's just part of life. But every time the facts get brought forth, they have to shake their head, whisper under their breath. Ashley Biden was there for most of the day. She's crying half the time. So if you're a juror and you see that, I think that makes you want to go easy on the defendant, even though he was clearly guilty.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the jurors in the wake of the guilty verdict have already been telling news outlets that they kind of wish the charges had never been brought, but they were brought. These particular charges, at least, presented to the jury, and any rational juror is going to walk away going, "Yeah, it's clear he broke the law here."
It is. There wasn't much of a case. I think and I'm sure Tristan said this, the third charge is arguably unconstitutional. That's what makes Melissa's accosting of our group, because I'm just the figurehead of Marco Polo, so ridiculous. Because from the very beginning we've been saying, and that's why I called it a C-level trial, the first two charges having to do with lying on the form, that is clearly constitutional, and he was clearly guilty. He's clearly guilty of the third trial too, but the 922G charge is likely going to be overturned at SCOTUS. And I agree with that, because even if you're an addict, I still think you should have I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. So I still think you should have the ability to defend your family even though you're an addict, right? So what I'm trying to get across is we've surveyed this whole situation fairly. This isn't just to get Hunter Biden. This is about justice. Somebody who is so brazen that they think they can write a memoir and do an audiobook about how they were so high on crack and then think that a jury won't convict him, that is delusions of grandeur. And so I think that's the only positive thing, because this criminal conduct doesn't touch on Joe. The special counsel's office was deliberate about that. But even if it doesn't touch on Joe, the American people get to see how delusional they are up close and personal.
Amazing. So Garrett Ziegler, were you in there for every day of the proceeding?
Yes, Monday through Friday. I went back home. I'm here in Illinois now just because they deliberate. I knew all that was left was the jury deliberations. I wanted to be there for every witness, right? Because that's new. I know, based on our research on the laptop, I knew most of the exhibits that were admitted into evidence. But there were a couple of things that the witnesses said, and everybody can go to our website, marcopolo501c3.org, and download the 2 transcripts. We got 2 of the 5 days. We're working on the other 3, although they cost an arm and a leg. The court reporter has to get paid somehow. And they can read they can read the trial transcripts for themselves, which, because I'm a nerd, I prefer that. You can see the entire context of the back and forth. And so I was there every day. I would just urge all your listeners to, the September trial, I'll be at every day. I'd like to come on your program to talk about that, because
that's the tax trial in California, right?
Exactly. Starts September 5th. It includes 3 felonies of tax evasion and then 6 misdemeanors, 9 counts in all. So 3 times as many counts. And that will touch on Joe. Not completely. I would grade that as like a B-level trial, because they're missing the Mac Daddy, which is the FARA violations and money laundering. That's the key to the Bidens. That's what Hunter's business model was.
So if the Biden's administration's Justice Department and the jurors in that courtroom all agree that the laptop is legitimate, it contains extensive evidence of all sorts of criminal conduct, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Our dossier, which, again, anybody can read for free, the e-reader at BidenReport.com, we counted 459 criminal violations. Not all of those are felonies. We're fair. If it's a misdemeanor, we mark it as such. But the number is 459, committed by Hunter and his associates. Not all of them are Hunter himself, but it's really a roving pack of FARA violations. That's what I would describe it as in full. And, his lawsuit against us, Vince, is so ridiculous, because he's claiming that it's his data in one federal court. We have a draft bar complaint against Hunter's lawyer, Abby Lowell, pending in Maryland right now, because in California, he says that we stole his data and it's his data. But then in court filings under the pains and penalties of perjury in Delaware, his attorney said that we can't be sure that it's his data. So I have laughingly and accurately described it as Schrodinger's laptop to them. Hunter's data is inauthentic when it doesn't suit their purposes and authentic when it does. Yeah. Of course, this is, in another word, this is called lying, which is what Hunter's attorneys do every day.
Okay, I want to ask, because you attended every day of the witness testimony and the trial. One of the things I was looking for in this trial was whether or not we'd get an answer to why the Secret Service was allegedly involved in trying to retrieve the paperwork from the gun store after all of this went down in 2018. The allegation was and has been, according to the gun store owner, that the Secret Service arrived seeking that background check paperwork. The gun store owner refused to hand it over. The Secret Service to this day denies involvement. Did we learn anything else during the trial?
Well, first of all, you're a very adept observer. That's one of the most important unanswered questions. And And it's unanswered because we didn't get any information whatsoever. Even what you're alluding to, the FD 302 of Ron Palomir, who was a witness for the defense, although he was a terrible witness for the defense because he confirmed all of Hunter's illegality. But Ron Palomir, in his FBI interview, said that 2 Secret Service agents went there. Now, the semantics is that the Secret Service is going to say that they have no official record. And to smart people like you and I, that's never been our contention. We have always alleged, based on the shop owner's, word, that this was an off-duty thing. Remember, Joey, by statute, lost, and all of his family, lost Secret Service protection in July of 2017. That's the statute governing how long a former vice president gets it.
Yes.
This gun thing occurred on October 12, 2018, as you know. So this means that 15 months after Joey was even authorized to have Secret Service protection, 2 off-duty officers came to play cleanup. And thank God for Palomir, the shop owner's courage and foresight, because he knew that they were trying to buffalo him and clean up for Hunter. But we still don't know the names of the Secret Service agents. In 2021, we called Palomir, and he said, hey, look, it's a pending criminal matter. I can't talk to you. So now, June 11, 24, this is the first day where it's not been pending anymore. So I'm hoping, what I want, and this is what I asked Palomir in 21, is give us the footage from that day. The second they left that night, those Secret Service agents off duty, he should have grabbed that footage, and I want that footage because then we can run facial recognition on the people. Because I don't even think they gave him their card.
So Garrett Ziegler, do we know that they were off duty, or is it possible that they were former Secret Service agents who were using their prior status as a way to kind of intimidate the shop owner?
So what Palomir told me in 21 in a short phone call is that they weren't.
Sorry, Palomir. Just tell people, who is Palomir?
Ronald Palomir is the owner of StarQuest Shooters on Concord Pike, just outside of Wilmington, Delaware.
Got it.
And he was a witness for Hunter at this because they wanted to try to catch him in some lies. It backfired. The jury believed him. And Palomir said that they weren't in uniform, and there were 2 of them. So, but the most important thing is they did identify themselves as with the Secret Service. So he did what any reasonable, sharp person would do and demanded ID, and they didn't give it. So that's why because I don't think he knows their names still to this day because he didn't get their business cards. Yeah. And so I've just been trying to lovingly prod him to say, hey, look, if you have any footage from that day, and ironically, Vince, I can follow up with Corey too, but there's a tweet to Palomir in 2021 when all of this was being broken. Politico came out with it in March of 21. Palomir liked a tweet that said, I hope Ronald Palomir saved his video footage from that day. So I don't know if, this it's very key because guess what? Hunter is guilty, but I don't think that's the most egregious thing. The most egregious thing would have been a lost gun being used by a high schooler to blow somebody's head off. That was the worst case scenario in all of this. But just under that, let's say Hallie throws away the gun, somebody kills somebody, and that stolen gun is then used in a crime. But I think below that and above just Hunter doing a paperwork felony is this Secret Service involvement. And you're one of the few people. You're one of the few people who stayed on it. That is absolutely nuts. And then just to tell everybody, Palomir is a fair guy. He told the Secret Service, "Hey, this isn't your equity, right? This isn't your duty. If an ATF officer, because an ATF officer can go into any federal firearm licensing and demand their 4473s by statute, right? So guess what? James Reisch, surname Reisch, contacted him on the 28th of October, 5 days after the gun was dropped in the trash can, and then Palomir emailed it to him, meaning he was doing the right thing. That is an ATF person's job, but he knew that the Secret Service were trying to play cleanup. And for the public's sake, for truth's sake, those Secret Service agents need to be fired. And I don't know if there's a tort or some sort of thing that Palomir can get them on, maybe a Bivens action. But that is so disgusting.
And it's the piece that implicates Joe. That's the piece. So when people say this has nothing to do with Joe, well, that certainly stinks to high heaven and has Joe's fingerprints all over it. Hey, Garrett Ziegler, I got to let you go here. But people can check you out with Marco Polo. Thank you, as always, sir, for your time. Really appreciate that.